Live. There we go. Welcome back to the Casual GM Podcast. I'm your host, Drew, and joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever, Drew. How about you, man? You sound a little under the weather.
I sound like death because I have a cold. I went through my family, and I thought, oh, neat, I avoided it. And that was a lie. It was a cruel trick played upon me. But we'll fight it off.
Bitch.
Just a cold.
Yeah, nature, that smarmy bitch, right?
Yeah, right. So, but we're not here to talk about my ailment. We're here to talk about the Detroit Lions defeating the Minnesota Vikings, delaying their win and wrapping up the division title by at least one more week.
Yeah.
Putting themselves pretty firmly in the playoff race now. And opinions and perceptions and feelings are high on the Lions right now. So.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the different power rankings, and we have been climbing up big jumps this week, but we've been slowly climbing up over the last 5-6 weeks. But I saw us at 10 in one, which is crazy. I thought that was pretty cool.
That seems high.
Well, yeah. I mean, at the same time, we are the hottest team in the league. Now, granted, some of the opponents were, Jacksonville, right? But still, you have to go out and play the game. You still have to win the game that you're supposed to. So I'm good with that. Like, I think there isn't a team in the league that would like to face us in the playoffs if we were to make it.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think the one thing that everybody wants to avoid is like playing a team that never quits.
Yeah.
And like I have yet to see Detroit quit. Maybe the New England game, but
yeah, that one never got started.
Yeah.
I don't think they quit. They just never got started.
1 out of 13 weeks, I'm willing to forgive that, I suppose. But like every team stumbles once in a while, but it's pretty great to see.
I think some of the interesting things for me on this game was JMO's snap count slowly increasing. He was kind of a decoy that first game. I think he got 9 snaps this game, so it wasn't a big jump, but that was more than Khalif Raymond. He's 4th behind Sun God, Chark, and Reynolds on the snap count list. And that guy, man, all he does is catch touchdowns.
Right.
You're only going to do something. It's catch touchdowns, and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, he had 14 snaps in this game, including a pretty nice block on the Justin Jackson touchdown that nobody's really talking about. I haven't seen, but
pancake that dude.
He did. I was like, wait a second, that's Williams. He's out there throwing blocks, and I'm just like cringing because I want him to be okay. But yeah, he got loose for his first catch / touchdown. I literally screamed out loud when I saw it. I was so excited for the kid. It was great. So busted coverage. Pretty clearly a busted coverage, but he just snuck right behind him, and Goff saw it and managed to get it to him. Touchdown. So
yeah, Goff was finally our top-rated offensive player. He's had some good games, but even on his better games, he was, was our 5th best or 6th best guy, but he played phenomenal. I think I don't have it in front of me, but his PFF rating was in the 80s.
Yeah, that's his best grade in a long time.
Yeah, he looked really, really good. He was good everywhere. He was good on the short throws. I thought his footwork was better than it had been in the past. He avoided some tackles or sacks, some pressure. He hit some big plays downfield. The JMO play, it's pretty easy to go, yeah, he underthrew him. Williams had to stop and wait for the ball. But at the same time, it was broken coverage, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of that was just the whole I don't really want to overthrow him, so I will throw it a little bit, maybe a little bit lighter, and let him stop and ensure the catch. But that dime chart was a thing of beauty.
That throw to Chark was by any metric a fantastic throw. So
yeah.
JT O'Sullivan, who does the QB School YouTube channel, did a 20-minute breakdown of Goff that I watched today.
Yeah.
Some interesting things in there. Yeah, he certainly was very complimentary of how well he played. So very nice to see. Hopefully it continues at this level. That would be fantastic. Keep bumping up that trade value. So
killing me. I do want to say what's up to One Pride and Crimson and A6. It's good to see you back. It's been a little bit.
Yes, hello everybody. So I would take a Cherry Halls at this point, Crimson. My voice. I deliberately didn't talk like almost all day long, trying to save my voice just for this, but it comes out like an old man about to die. So I'm very sorry about that.
So what were other things that you noticed in the game?
Just the feeling that I got from this game was that Detroit was never threatened at all by Minnesota. Like Justin Jefferson has like a career high, and it was like this didn't matter.
Yeah,
it's like he has how many catches for how many yards? Jesus Christ!
Was it 213?
It was over 200.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, I don't care. Like all of his, even if they had given him that touchdown, which I don't think that he was out of bounds. I think that that was a legit score.
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, that gets it within 1 point, right? So like, but at the same time, I'm just like, none of this matters. None of this matters. Like, and then TJ Hawkinson had a very TJ Hawkinson game. Congrats. X amount of catches for X amount of first yards, however many first downs.
And at least
you dropped a third down conversion that hit you in the goddamn hands, and like your team didn't win. Sounds like a TJ Hawkinson game to me. Yeah. So there was that, and then just the rookies. Malcolm Reynolds comes up with a huge fourth down stop early in the game. Kirby Joseph recovers a fumble. Hawk had a sack and was just in and around Cousins all day. Yeah, like he forced a bad throw that on 3rd and long by just getting his hands up and being in Kirk Cousins' face. Houston had another sack, and he's only played like 30 snaps. Like it's ridiculous.
I think the defense is clearly becoming Hutch's. I think even though he's a rookie, I think his charisma and passion and skill also is really kind of taking over that defense, and he's kind of making it his own.
Well, that's great because by rights it should be his. Like there's literally no other player on the defense that I think has the kind of clout that being the number 2 overall pick just automatically brings you. And he should be a leader.
Yeah. And I thought Okuda's absence was felt big time.
Yeah, he was.
Justin Jefferson down in the first game. He had 14 yards or something crazy. And he was really limited snap count, and almost all of Jefferson's yards came when he was not in the game.
Yeah, I think that Okuda's played well enough this year to have his 5th-year option picked up after the season. He's very clearly the best corner on the team. And, I think maybe the only corner on the team, to be honest. Like, I like Jerry Jacobs fine. The dude plays hard and he's got a good attitude. But just because we have Jerry Jacobs, it's not a reason to be like, I'm going to pass on a Christian Gonzalez or a Keely Ringo in the first round. Like, you don't pass on guys like that because Jerry Jacobs is on the team. He's a UDFA that we're paying less than $1 million. Like,
and we need depth anyway. It's not like he has to go away if we draft somebody else, right?
And we're gonna talk about the cornerback room a little bit later on in the show if I have my voice.
Yeah. So I want to ask what your favorite play or favorite series was, but I'm going to start with mine.
Sure.
So I don't want you to steal it.
Sure.
I loved the call having Sewell in motion on that third down and that little toss pass to him. He catches it, dives, big man dives. I loved the play. I loved the call. Execution was good. I thought it was really ingenious. I thought that was phenomenal. It was such fun. I was like, oh my god, it was Sewell. That was in fact, he was our top-rated passer by PFF as Sewell.
Yeah, right. He had one catch. So
yeah, top-rated pass catcher.
Sure. So that'll be a nice little feather in his cap. I don't have a single play or series. Like, to me, it was just the team played well start to finish in all phases. And like a couple of weeks ago, they won 2-3 weeks ago. And it was like, I can't remember who it was against right now with my fuzzy brain, but like, they squeaked by them or whatever. Yeah. And then, the defense shows up and, you put the complete package together. And now it feels like, well, you were out in front of a playoff team the whole time, no threat. Like, I was really impressed. I was really just impressed with the overall performance and effort and the way everything came together. It was a complete game. I was as happy watching that Lions game as I have been in recent memory. So it was an excellent experience.
Yeah, that Asig mentions Goff made that throw in the out route on third down, under pressure, took a big hit, said it was everything I ever wanted. And I thought this was by far Goff's best game. Now, I can't say anything bad. Like he did almost nothing wrong that game.
I can say things that are bad.
He did everything you could ask for. Does that mean I think he's our quarterback of the future? Not necessarily. But I also understand that our draft position may not allow us to grab that. He's a good, serviceable quarterback. But if he continues this the rest of the season and we don't draft one this year and he does the same thing next season, I'd be fine letting him, run his contract out. If he can play like this consistently, I'd be good keeping him around. But one game or even 2 or 3 games over the last 6 aren't enough for me to go, you're our future. But he's working his way there. We'll see how he goes.
No, he's not. And I'm happy that he's playing well. To me, all it means is his trade value is going up. Hey, Funky.
What's up, Funky?
So, but it's good that he's playing well. I'm happy that he's playing well. So, winning is more fun than losing for sure. So.
And Crimson mentions Jalen Rieger. He said at least Hawk had a catch. Huh, Jalen Rieger? I would like to point out that Penei Sewell had more catches and more yards than Jalen Rieger. So that's always fun too.
Yeah. Good job. So we were talking about him a little bit before the podcast, and I just don't give a shit about anything that Jalen Rieger has to say. Yeah. He's just the fifth option on that team on the offense. Like, I don't care what you say.
And honestly, it's like when a coach says something good about a starting whatever player. What are you gonna do? Say no, this guy sucks.
Right.
No, you want him to do it. You want to talk good, and he's no different. Like, I'm not gonna say like, well, yeah, I just don't think we can beat the Lions. No, that's 50-50. I mean, that's not the kind of stuff you'd say. So
yeah, no one will ever say that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna give it our all. It's a team sport, and any team can come together for one Sunday and do the unthinkable or whatever. You never say, oh, we're probably gonna lose. No,
right.
Zach Wilson might say that.
It's true. Well played. So after this just nonstop, like you said, we were never threatened at all this game, really. After starting 1-6, winning 5 of our last 6,
yeah,
we are still in the playoff hunt, which is kind of crazy to think of.
Yeah.
So I guess one of my questions is, if I mean in our upcoming schedule is not terrible, so we'll go over that here in a minute. But like, if we were to make the playoffs, is Dan Campbell the Coach of the Year candidate?
Yeah. To be fair, if you are, so they're 6 and 7. If you go 3 out of the next 4 and you make the playoffs at 9 and 7 or whatever it is, 9 and 8, and you go from a 3-win team to a playoff team, even in this down season in football where everybody's got a more equal record, you have to be considered a playoff or a Coach of the Year candidate. I don't know how you can avoid it. So I mean, like, the only other people who would have the storyline to be a Coach of the Year candidate would be who is the coach of the Eagles? Cerrone? Nick
I
Cerrone?
don't even know.
So like, they've been a dominant team all season, assuming they get the 1 seed. You know, he's like in his 2nd or 3rd year there, you know, and like them doing what they're doing, like he would be the one that I would think would probably be the front runner. And then you're looking at the like people in the Lions position where you're overperforming. So I mean, depending on how Seattle finishes the year, I think you could make the same argument for Pete Carroll like you could for Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
I think it's going to depend on who gets in. And
Miami, the Jets, and some of those guys.
Yeah.
Hey Shan, thanks for joining.
Yeah, so I mean, I do think that he would be a legitimate candidate. So, you know, and he's entertaining enough, open enough, engaging enough where I think that you would get the like, well, we really like Dan Campbell vote, you know, on top of it. So
yeah, he got a little bit of publicity with Hard Knock. Well, everything he does for whatever reason garners some publicity. The biting the kneecaps, and of course everything through Hard Knocks, I think probably grew him a lot of fans as well. So that won't hurt when it comes to any kind of popularity contest-ish voting, right?
Right. So I mean, being popular, I don't know, has ever really hurt anybody when it comes to any kind of vote. So
yeah,
probably can. It's not. I know it's not going to be Cliff Kingsbury. So
did you say Kingsbury or Klingsbury? Because it might be Klingsbury because he's clinging to a job right now.
You know, which is ridiculous because they extended him last offseason. So
it
just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so. I look back at the 7 weeks ago before we kind of went on our run of 5 of our last 6 games that we've won, and people were calling, you know, hey, he should be fired now. You know, he shouldn't he shouldn't be able to make it through the season, blah, blah, blah. And I think all of those guys can go take a long walk off a short pier when it comes to that kind of stuff. We all knew that it was going to be a longer term thing. There wasn't going to be, the first, 20 games is all you get. I think he's showing people that had faith in him, like, this is why, this is what we're doing, this is what we're building. It's going to come slow, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does feel like more and more that you get about 20 games and that's it.
Yeah.
But, I think that the thing that I'm happy about right now is that I thought that 6 wins on the season would show progress on this team. And I think that has been proven. So I think that Campbell and Holmes are safe this year heading into next year. And anything that they do, I am under the weather, Shannon. Anything they do from this point out that's positive only helps that case. So I think both of those guys in their own way are immensely responsible for this turnaround. Like, the people who have said that, like, hey, we should fire Campbell early in the season when they were 1-6. The team was still playing hard for Dan Campbell when they were 1-6. The only thing that's different about this team is that the results of playing hard have now, Soup would be great. The results are different, right? They've learned how to win, or they've reached the top of the hill, or whatever cliche you want to throw on top of it. But, and now you're getting some tally marks in the right column, and so now it's like, oh, what he's doing is great and all that stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, if you want to take a look at some of the numbers, like earlier in the season when they were 1-6, you and I took a look at some of the stuff they were doing and what they were doing. Chicken Noodle. What they were doing was not converting on third down, needing to go for it on fourth down at super high rates, turning the ball over, committing penalties, even when they were scoring points, right? But they were scoring points back then off of like big explosive plays. Now over this like 5 out of 6 stretch, they're converting like close to 50% on third down. Like the number of times they're taking a chance on going for it on fourth down is way, way down. And they have been winning the turnover battle like significantly in this stretch. I think it's something like they're up to like 10-1 or 11-1 in the last 6 games.
Yeah.
Like if you are plus 10 over 6 weeks in the turnover battle, you should win games. I don't care if you're the worst team in the NFL. Like that ratio, you just have more opportunities. And they've eliminated mistakes largely from their game, and they're forcing their opponents into mistakes. And that's just and you add playing hard to that mix and all that other shit. Like that's just a recipe for any group of human beings to go beat any other group of human beings, no matter what you're talking about. And luckily it's our Detroit Lions that are doing it. So no, not tomato. Don't be gross. So tomato soup is for the week.
It's only if you pair it with a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah, that is okay. So I'll take, all right. Tomato soup with a grilled cheese sandwich. That is the only combination that makes it palatable.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
So looking at our remaining schedule, we've got at the Jets this weekend, at Carolina, home against Chicago, at Green Bay. All winnable.
Yep.
Right. Even though three of 4 on the road, they're still all winnable. Yep. But I want to say, but we're the Lions, so we're going to lose at least one of them. But the reality is not just that we're the Lions. The reality is if you're going to play 3 of 4 on the road against and Green Bay is no slouch. They haven't played well this year, but they're also not they're not Houston. They're not Chicago, right? So
they have talent, yeah.
They have talent. The Jets have talent. They've played better lately. They got a great defense. So I think we can win all 4. I think we'll probably win 3. Maybe lose to the Jets, maybe lose to Green Bay. Either way, I think that we're going to end up 9-8. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get us in the playoffs. We may have to win out to get into the playoffs.
Well, we know that Washington and New York play each other at least one more time.
I'm sure they'll tie again.
That was bad for us.
It was.
And you own the tiebreakers with both of those teams. So you need to equal their win totals at a minimum.
Yep.
But like 7-1 is going to be better than anything that like Detroit at, or like 9-1.
Yeah.
If Detroit is 9-10 or 9-8, whatever it is now, they're going to get in because they have the better record. So you need to. I mean, tiebreakers don't really matter with those two teams. You really need to
have more wins than them.
Right. You have to have one more win than both of them.
Right. So if they're 9-1 and we're 9-7-1 and we're 9-8, they get in.
Right.
So we have to hit 10 if they're.
This is why ties are awful.
Yeah. So I think we have a chance to get there. I think right now we are listed at 20% to make the playoffs, up from 3 or 7% before the Minnesota game.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets game will be this next weekend will be big because obviously if we win, I think our odds go up because that's one of the stronger teams we play. If we lose, our odds go down because that's just the way the math works, right?
Yep, that's right.
And then so our pick right now is in that 15-ish range. Yeah. But the Rams pick is at 4, and their upcoming schedule is at Green Bay, home against Denver, at or home, I don't know. They play the Chargers.
Yeah.
they travel all the way to SoFi to play the Chargers, and then at Seattle. Baker Mayfield's played pretty well in the one game, 2 days into his tenure there. I don't see them winning many of those games. Maybe the Denver game. It's home and it's Denver.
Well, I think that they're all winnable. I mean, for the Rams, the worst thing that could happen is that team gets a little artificial confidence. Baker gets hot and carries them.
Yeah.
So
don't talk like that.
Well, that's what we saw last Thursday night or whatever it was.
Yeah, but that was also the Raiders. I mean, have you seen what they've done all season? That's what they've done all season. Is
but the Raiders have records similar to every team on that list. I mean, like,
yeah, but like they collapsed. That's like the third time that they gave up a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, we can throw that storyline around, but like every one of those teams has a blemish on their, but they're also good at something, like I think the problem is that it's not like Kansas City, Buffalo, Philadelphia,
Miami,
San Francisco or whatever. Like that's the problem. Is like every one of those teams is beatable. And it's gonna, I think that with a lot of those teams, it's gonna come down to which quarterback plays better. And if Baker's hot coming off of that, it doesn't matter how bad they were. Like the fact that he did that is gonna lift his confidence up.
Yeah.
And if you get confident and start hitting throws, like it doesn't matter that Van Jefferson's your number one guy. Like you're gonna, like, the thing that people don't want to acknowledge about Baker Mayfield is that at stretches that guy has balled out as well as most of the top QBs in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's not consistent. So like if you hit like a little 4-game stretch here, it's going to be absolutely terrible for the Detroit Lions. I don't think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, it could go anywhere from 4-0 to 0-4. They have the capability of winning every one of those games, but not the likelihood.
So I think Seattle and the Chargers beat them pretty handily. Christian, what's his name, Watson for Green Bay has come on. So I mean, like, to me, the problem and the most important game is Denver, because if Denver beats Los Angeles, they're going to flip-flop draft positions.
Yep.
And that pick, I mean, for as fun as it is to have that pick, if it's not a top 3 pick, I don't care.
Yeah, Denver's drafting 2 overall right now. Chicago's at 3. So even if Denver wins, they go to 4-9, and they're still in front of the Rams. So
yeah, you still gotta have it though to have a chance, right? So like,
yeah.
My problem is I don't want it to go Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and the Detroit sitting there at 4 with like their thumb in their ass because they don't know what to do now, because every player that would have really helped this team out, we got fucked over by being in like the tier 2, the number 1 pick in the tier 2 slot.
Yeah.
And that's my absolute worst fear, because like if you miss out on the playoffs by tiebreakers or a game, you don't want Will Anderson. Okay. If you miss out on the playoffs on like the tie that the Giants and Commanders had, or a tiebreaker for some other reason, and you're like, oh neat, 9-win season. Also, the Rams and their turbulent, shitty year that they had somehow managed to get us super close to every player that really would have made a huge difference for us. I'm kind of sitting here going like, well, this worked out about as terrible as it possibly could have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, at that point, like, if it goes Young, Carter, Anderson, and Detroit sitting there, I'm looking to trade the pick to whomever wants to come up for Stroud. We already have CJ Stroud on the roster. I don't need another one. So,
all right. So next up, we were going to start doing a deep dive. Actually, you know what? We got let's do a quick social / mailbag question. We did have Gary, one of our listeners. I don't think he watches on the live, but he listens to the video on demand. He said, "Hey, our run game isn't the best right now. What can we do now or next year to improve it?"
Okay, so we're going to be doing a deep dive on like the position groups between now and the end of the season and going into free agency. I've already done it, and I'm just going to update it as we get closer to the end of the season. There he is.
What's up, Gary? You are here.
Holy cow.
Boy.
Loyal listener. The problem I see with the run game has been DeAndre Swift has been injured, and there's been injuries on the offensive line, particularly on the interior. Ragnow has not been healthy all season, although he's been healthier recently. Evan Brown missed last game, and therefore, like, Iwasika, I think his name is, had to come in and play for a game or two. Skipper and what's his name? Skipper's played a number of different positions along the line, but Jonah Jackson had missed time this season, and like that to me is the problem. And so, like, I think what Detroit needs to do to get the running game to be more potent in this upcoming season is a couple things. Number one, I'm less about getting rid of Vitae right now than I have been earlier in the season, largely because Evan Brown is going to be up for a new contract, and like Spot Track has a market value system where they can estimate what that guy can make per yearly basis. And like they're estimating that Evan Brown can go into free agency and make $10 million a year. So if that's the case, like you can't retain him to be a backup. So I think that you keep Vitae, you go into next year with the lineup that you wanted to have this year: Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, Vitae, Sewell, and you end up drafting a replacement for Brown and to upgrade the depth slightly. And you can do this in the middle or maybe even the late rounds a little bit, but so you don't have to burn a premium pick on it. But I think that the running game and the ability for the running game to be potent is going to stem from healthy offensive line play when you have your starters out there. And then if DeAndre Swift, Mark Malik.
Hey, Mark.
I don't remember seeing a Mark Malik before. Welcome, yeah.
Maybe he'll sub. We'll get you closer to that new hat.
Yeah, he could be our 41st. Who knows? But like, to me, it's about Swift being healthy. It's about the offensive lineman. It's about being healthy first, and then like, I don't know what the deal is with Jamal Williams, whether they just played a style of running game against the Vikings that didn't emphasize what he's been doing so well lately, but it just felt like he couldn't get going. I mean, both teams played the run pretty well. Like the Lions held Dalvin Cook to almost nothing, and like CJ Moore was the leading rusher on the Lions like last week on the fake punt. So I mean, like, it's pretty crazy. So the foam engine black. So right. Do we have any other questions?
Gary also asked, do we use a pick on a quarterback or plan on Goff for the future? And maybe we get to that when we start doing the deeper dive into the quarterback position. But what's your 10-second gut feeling on that?
Sure. Let's say Detroit has the 4th and 18th picks in the draft. Say they get to the playoffs and they lose in round 1 or whatever. Or maybe 18 would be just missing the playoffs. So let's say that happens. Let's say they lose out on tiebreakers or whatever, and you have the 4th and 18th pick. My first thing that I do is I call Houston and I say, I'll give you 4-18 and a couple of 2s for the number 1 overall pick. What do you guys want to talk about it?
4-18 and a couple 2s?
You got to move up. I mean, you got to make it worth their while. They're not going to sit there and just be like, well, we're going to look at our trade chart, and if that's a 1-to-1 ratio, we're going to do it. They're going to sit there and they're going to be like, okay, how much value can we extract from this trade? That's their job, is to make their team better, right? And if you're not going to help them do that, they're not going to trade with you.
Right.
So you have to incentivize them and make it like, I mean, they can take Bryce Young right now and be like, well, we have a quarterback that we can mold and who's probably outside of his. I mean, if he was 6'2", 200 pounds, and Bryce Young would be being talked about with Trevor Lawrence as the kind of prospect that he's coming out. So but he's not, So I would put together a package and pitch it to Houston to see if you can go get Bryce Young. And if he can't, then I'm looking at a guy like Bo Nix, in round 3.
Just somebody, we have to have a backup of some sort anyway. What we have is not competent, so we might as well go with a mid-round pick for that and see if we can get a Dak Prescott type of thing out of it, where they greatly overplay their draft position.
Right. And say you draft a guy in round 3, whoever it might be, you've got that dude for 4 years for about $1 million, So, I mean, that's better than having a ever recurring number of veterans on 1-year contracts.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe he does Dak Prescott or whatever, and he gets an opportunity and doesn't let it go. Cool. That's Kirk Cousins, that's Russell Wilson, that's a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So it does happen. It's just not as likely as drafting a guy in the top 10. So the problem is I don't like any of the guys in the top 10. I don't like Anthony Richardson. I don't really like Will Levis. I don't want CJ Stroud because he's just a younger version of Jared Goff. We already have that. You're just, the only thing you would be doing by drafting CJ Stroud is signing up for a rookie season where he's probably not very good and then paying him about a third of the money, So that would be great. Cheaper version of the same thing, but you have to be able to play outside of structure. You have to be able to make plays with your feet. Jared Goff and CJ Stroud, to me, don't do that nearly frequently enough. So I don't want those guys. And the team might be ready to win now.
Yeah, crazy to think of 12 months ago. Did you think 12 months ago, a year from now, I'm going to be like, yeah, we might be ready to win now. This next year might be the season where we're after this is our window.
Yeah. Mark, Swift is only one of 2 running backs that are signed next year on the roster. So whether he's hurt or not, you're probably drafting at least one running back to be your third stringer and re-signing Williams.
But I think Jamal wants to be here. He loves Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell loves him. He's having a career season. So I think this is a perfect fit for him. He'll be like, bring me back for 2 more years.
Sure. That would be fine.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. But once we head into 2024 off season and Swift's contract's up, you don't have to retain him.
All right, let's do this. Let's start swinging over into our position group deep dive.
All right.
So while you don't even have an Excel spreadsheet where you can share your screen or anything?
No.
Pay cut, I tell you.
Well,
so I know your voice is rough, so I'll kind of tell the guys and Shannon, the guys and gals, what we're kind of planning on doing here. So we're going to talk about on a position by position basis, who's on our team, who we're expecting to probably cut or not have next year, whether it's cutting them or whatnot, or maybe we just don't re-sign them. We're going to take a look at the free agent market for those positions. Who would we re-sign? Who do we try to go for in free agency? Who do we want to draft? And we figure we start with cornerbacks. So I guess, Drew, I will let you take it away because you've done all the work on this. You've done one of the nice, pretty Excel spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mike, for that. So basically what I did was I took a look at the players who have played cornerback snaps on the Lions roster this year. And there's a list of them. There's probably, 3, 6, 9 guys. Okay. Let's start at the top. Okuda is the best cornerback on the roster. He's played the most. Even with these like illness here, concussion protocol there, he's played 638 snaps out wide so far this year through 13 weeks. Number 2 on the team with snap count wise is Will Harris. Surprisingly enough, mostly in the slot, and he has had his best year in a while. So still not great, but like, especially since the Aubrey Pleasant firing, which still baffles me to this day, why they did it and why we're so much better now with him gone, that he may have turned a corner. I still don't want him on the team, but like, he's playing better than he has. Then you have 2 guys that are basically playing the same quality at the same quantity, and that's Amani Aruwariye, yes, and Mike Hughes. Yeah, and Mike Hughes. Unfortunately, they're both terrible. So, to me, you have, and then Jerry Jacobs just came back. He's played just over 200 snaps so far this season. He plays out wide. So I think the Lions, they only have 3 cornerbacks on the roster for next season, and that's Jacobs, Okuda, and Chase Lucas. So everybody else's contract's up. So that's 7 guys, 6 or 7 guys that you're just not going to have on the team because contract reasons. So if you couple that with like how well each of them have played, I could see Okuda and Jacobs going into the season as the starting cornerbacks on this team. And maybe you give Chase Lucas an opportunity to win the slot, but you have to add depth at that position group, and you have to add what will amount to a lot of depth. So like, here are the people I think that the Lions should re-sign. I think they should pick up Jeff Okuda's 5th-year option. What, you don't want to bring back Mike Hughes? No, not really. The other guys on the roster that you could look to bring back are guys like AJ Parker, who's been hurt and I think is on IR currently. You could look to give snaps to yeah, right. You could look to give snaps to Chase Lucas. You could look to re-sign Savion Smith. He's probably going to be a special teamer more than a starting player, but at least you'd have a guy that could go out there in a pinch, and that would get you to 5 players. And I think you're probably going to need 6 or 7. Board is not a cornerback, so you're probably going to need to draft. I would either draft 2 guys or sign a guy and draft a guy. So I looked at some options for both of those scenarios, and this is what I came up with. So right now, Okuda's 5th year, Jacobs and Lucas are on the roster. I would re-sign AJ Parker. I would probably re-sign Savion Smith. Now we're at 5 guys. If you want cheap options at cornerback, you could be looking at guys like Bradley Roby, PJ Williams, Sidney Jones, guys that you could come in and do what the Lions have done in years past. I gotcha. Where you basically sign someone to like a prove it deal, like a 1-year prove it deal, and you see how they work out. Like basically what they did with Michael. Basically what they did with like Mike Hughes this year, you do that again with a different player, right? So maybe you sign like a Sidney Jones and there's like a camp competition. And if you want to go for like, if you want to try and sign a starter with some like recent, like some big money, you could be looking at guys like Cameron Sutton or Jamal Dean. They could come in and you would basically pencil them in as a starter. But then that leaves the draft. Yeah, okay. We're getting there, one Brad. I know how much you love this. Like in the draft, I would be looking at two things. Like, are we going to draft a cornerback to play out wide, like opposite Okuda, or are you going to try and draft a guy to play in the slot? So this is how I've done it. There are four good options, I think, for a cornerback that can play out wide, and that's Keely Ringo, Joey Porter, Christian Gonzalez, and Devin Witherspoon in some order. Draft at your, whatever your board says, right? And then if you're looking more for like a slot corner as opposed to a guy to play out wide, you're looking at guys like Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M, Brian Branch from Alabama. So you can do all those. You could probably get most of those guys somewhere between like your first and second round picks, depending on how the draft goes, of course. So, I think that if you re-sign the guys on the team, that leaves you 5. You go out and you sign a cheap cornerback to bring in for depth, that gets you 6, and you draft a guy or two. Now you're at 7 or 8. You can bring that into camp, and you have, I think, the beginnings of an improved, cornerback room, assuming everybody stays healthy. So, because no one saw Amani Araraway falling off like he did this year, so, which was a real bummer.
Yeah, his history says maybe he can return to that level, maybe with different coaching or having the scheme adjusted. So, is he under contract for another year?
Araraway is not. Everyone but Jacobs, Okuda, and Lucas their contracts are up.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, looking through the different mock draft simulators, it looks like there's a lot of corners in the top 50. So whether that's someone we take early, someone we take in with our pick in the first round, or our pick, or the Vikings pick that we got, like there's a lot of options for us in the draft at basically every level.
Yeah. So I like Cam Smith too, but Cam Smith is more of a zone corner. And I think that the Lions are going to, based upon the amount of man coverage that Aaron Glenn has run, like I see him lower on the board for the Lions than he would be for other teams. So I think that the guys that they would be looking at would be Christian Gonzalez, Keely Ringo, Joey Porter. So that's just my thoughts. So there's not a lot of depth and there's not a lot of talent in that room. So I would throw significant resources at that position group this offseason if the defense is going to get better. So, and that's it. Like, just wanted to outline some options, take a look at contracts, see who's on the team, and then, we can, we'll watch and see what they do to try and address the position group, because I know that Aaron Glenn has got to be frustrated with what he has seen from like the miscommunication, the lack of being able to execute, out of these DBs, and just it's kind of heartbreaking in a way, because some of those early games were winnable, and if you just had a little bit better play in a couple areas, probably wouldn't be in this position. So,
hell, and even the Buffalo game.
Yeah. Yep.
So, if the Rams pick ends up at 4 and the board does go Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, and we're sitting there at 4. We don't have trade down partners. Is that where you would look at a guy like Miles Murphy as kind of like the next best option on the board?
So I ran into this, but I was drafting and I ran into this a couple of times, and I just absolutely hate that scenario. That is,
it's the worst.
The absolute worst scenario for the Lions.
I've run into it almost every time I've mock drafted, just because it knows that it is going to piss me off.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say that Miles Murphy wouldn't be the best player on the board there. The only other player that I would really probably consider would be somebody like Quentin Johnson, wide receiver from TCU. It's just such a drop off.
Yeah, Nolan Smith, the edge rusher from Georgia.
No, I don't think it. Well, I mean, it's got to be somebody. It's got to be somebody like that. I mean, like, I think that you could make the case that you could take a corner higher than in years past. We've seen corners go in the top 5 now several times over the last 2 or 3 years, so that maybe that's becoming a trend. What I don't want to do is just draft a like a Will Levis and be like, okay, kid, we're going to teach you how to play quarterback. Fuck that. I don't want to do that.
So here's an example. This pretty much happens to me every time. Bryce Young, Anderson, Carter, all off the board, and I'm sitting there going, I mean, what about, do we take a guy like Peter Skoronski? And
so you would be taking a guard at number 4.
Well, I was more thinking of tackle and maybe trading.
But he's not. He's not going to be a tackle in the NFL. He's going to be a guard.
You don't think he's going to be a tackle?
No. So, like the other day, someone was talking about. I was listening to some draft show. I think it was over at Bleacher Report's crew, and they were talking about his arms, like his arm length. I mean, take any other average lineman's arms and just cut their hands off, and that's like basically how long Peter Skoronski's arms are. Like, so he's going to be a guard probably for the majority. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if someone took him and started him at tackle, and maybe he's great. I mean, like Rashawn Slater for the Chargers also has a shorter wingspan than most people liked, but like he played really well. But like, if you're going to take Skoronski, you're cutting Vitae, right? Because you're not going to take the number 4 pick and put him on the bench. So he's a day 1 starter. So, okay, like I don't have a problem cutting Vitae, but like, is that the move? Is that the thing that makes the Lions the best with that resource?
More either Miles Murphy or Breesy, right?
So let's talk about ASIC's question here. Do we have enough snaps available to take an edge in the first round? Yes, you do. Want to know why? Because Aquara and Charles Harris are trash. They're trash. They're terrible. They're not good. They're both overpaid. It doesn't make any sense. Like, so to me, one of the things that now that I've been doing this deep dive on the position groups is like, do you give James Houston like the specialty pass rush situation snaps heading into next season? You know, basically Charles Harris's spot. Yes, save $4 million, cut Charles Harris, give those spots to this rookie that, who knows, you know, he might, if you gave him 100 pass rushing snaps, he might have 50 sacks. You know, the kid is ridiculous. So like, they could turn that room over for the better, I think. Which is why if gun to my head, I have to make a pick here, I'm probably taking Miles Murphy. But like, I also feel super bad about it.
Yeah, because now you're like, all right, we got Hutch, Murphy, and potentially a stud in Houston, and we're only going to get 2 of them on the field at one time, which means somebody's not there.
So like guys like Kaminsky and Houston like have played their way into snaps, but Kaminsky's going to be a DT. for them most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. So like you don't know about Onwuzurike coming back. So he's probably, I mean, like I'm not going to factor him into snap counts next season until I know he's better.
Yeah.
So like Kaminsky has certainly played his way into like at least sub package groups, whether or not he's going to be out there. He's certainly going to be a rotation guy, defensive tackle. But like, who's the guy that maximizes Aiden Hutchinson the best? That's the question. So if I am there at 4 and I'm thinking like, how do I make Aiden Hutchinson better? I give him a guy like Miles Murphy.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, if you guys are going to pay attention to Aiden Hutchinson, this other dude is going to come careening off your right tackle. And I know you said that like 3 times at one point. I get it. So like you like Breezy, like it's not a bad pick. I'm not knocking the pick. I'm just explaining my rationale. Yeah. But like if
divide and conquer, right?
Right. So and then you would still have a rotation of guys like Kaminsky, Isaiah Buggs, James Houston, you know, whatever. But like you don't need guys like Austin Bryant and
Aquara,
you know, or Harris. Like there's 4 guys right there that I even forgot about fucking Josh Pascal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like Josh Pascal's gonna have a place in the rotation too. So I mean, like, I think they're gonna be fine when it comes to like D linemen, but like what's the guy that maximizes Aiden Hutchinson the best? And like I think that it would probably be Miles Murphy. So
yeah, and then I think if we do go that route, I mean, with the 15th pick, we could go Quentin Johnson, upgrade the offense there a little bit, or we could go into that Brian Branch. We can go in the cornerback side of things, Jalen Jones.
Yeah, I would like to take Quentin Johnson, because then you have your burner, your chain mover, and you're like, I didn't say to do it. I just said I would.
I'm doing it anyway because that's what I wanted to do too.
Sure. And then you have your big go get it, and he breaks a ton of tackles. So I mean, like all those guys on rookie deals for like 2 years together, like that seems like super fun. But now you take Brian Branch.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. Take Washington.
Tight end?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm thinking maybe safety or linebacker. And just
keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling. Take Knicks. Take Knicks.
All right. See what
he probably has been taken. They'll grade it terrible because they're like team needs and my team needs are not in alignment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you let us see pluses, but like if you added that to this roster, that would be fucking great. So like the thing I like about Darnell Washington is like the Lions have been adding a lot of like the 6 offensive linemen in a lot of scenarios lately. And he's like having a 6th offensive lineman on the field all the time. So like they could have those sets and they could just become like permanent sets that they could run out of. Like he's a hybrid lineman / tight end. Like I just think that he would be an amazing fit for this team. But like
I'd be happy with this draft.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, so we've covered cornerbacks. Do we have an idea what we're going to cover next week for our deep dive?
Why don't we do safeties?
Let's do safeties. We will do safeties. But I think we're actually going to end up on time tonight, which is probably going to be great for your voice, and you can get some sleep, hopefully.
This is the most I've talked all day by far.
So. Yeah. I hope you feel better. Appreciate everybody joining us in the chat. Everybody that's going to watch it on demand or listening to it after the fact. We'll be here Tuesdays at 7. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Once we hit 50 subs, Drew is going to be getting a new hat, and we'll figure out some way for everybody to like vote on it or something like that. Email casualgmpodcast@gmail.com, or you can get us at casualgmpodcast on Twitter. So till next week, keep it casual. See you guys.
Bye.